My name is Jerry Wise, and I've been a relationship expert and marriage and family expert for about 40 years. I also do self-differentiation work with clients. I'm a relationship and life coach, and I'm also the director and founder of Jerry Wise Relationship Systems. And this video today is entitled Parents Who Have Children Who Are Narcissists. I've had a number of people ask me if I might do a video on this topic. I think it's a very good topic. It's probably not spoken of very much. I don't see that out there. And I'd like to recommend a very good book for folks. It is a book in which I borrowed some information from that book, added my own information as well and my experience. And it's entitled How to Kill a Narcissist by J.H. Simon. You can get it on Amazon. I really think it's well written, and he did a great job in making having a good primer introduction to how do you deal with a narcissist, how do you heal from a narcissist, and those types of things. And I think for parents who have children who are narcissistic, this would be a good resource for you. Many parents suffer from adult children who are narcissists. They often don't launch well into adulthood. They're demanding, maybe non-empathetic. They feel entitled. They want to be taken care of. Maybe they can't keep a job to maybe manipulate their dependent position at home. Now, some narcissists will launch out into the world and get jobs and leave home, and then they continue their criticism and bullying and manipulation after they get out. Many stay at home and stay stuck, and parents don't know what to do with them, and it's very difficult for them to manage them. Parents feel caught in this hyper-parent responsibility, and many times feel frozen by guilt and feeling very powerless when they have children in this situation. Parents may suffer abuse and have a chaotic household with the narcissist adult child living with them. And then many parents can experience narcissistic abuse syndrome as a result of their children. I think another way to think about adult children who are narcissists, that it's very similar to like addiction, where we've enabled them. There's a codependent relationship. They take control, just like if you have a son or child or daughter who is an alcoholic or addict, and we become over-enmeshed in their problems. And we get all caught up in their psychiatric difficulties or personality disorder or addiction or something like that. And I think many of the 12-step that's used in Al-Anon and other places can be helpful for disentangling yourself from an adult child who is a narcissist. So what are the traits of an adult child narcissist? Well, they tend to strive to want to be in control, even using extreme underfunctioning to stay in control, because underfunctioning can be a way of controlling as well. You just underfunction. You don't do very well. You have all the problems. You have lots of drama. And that controls the whole family dynamic and the whole family system. They use condescending stares or eye rolling. They snicker and laugh at your weaknesses. They speak about you, say, in the third person when you're present, where we feel shamed and powerless. Well, Don doesn't like the mess that I made, and Don's the dad. And the child will say, well, Janice doesn't like how I did such and such. And again, it's a very demeaning way to communicate. They inflate themselves through their painful stories in which they are highly superior, making everyone else feel small in the stories. They inflate themselves through assertion and deflection. They don't want to admit guilt or weaknesses. They say, I always, or you always, or I never, or you never. And again, they always deflate somewhere else because they can't stay responsible for their behavior. They'll get off on something else. If you criticize them, they'll talk about all your faults. If you want them to do something, they'll talk about all the things you don't do. And that's deflecting. They deflect in that way. They inflate themselves, and they ask critical, rhetorical questions. Like, why did you arrange the plates that way? Or what are you wearing that shirt for? Which is kind of a bullying tactic when they do that. It's very demeaning and doesn't feel good, and it's a rather put down. And they're kind of superior, telling you what you need to be doing or ought to be doing. They refuse or are not able to empathize or support others or support you as parents. You'll do everything for them, then you have a flat tire and they don't want to help. They can't help, they're not going to do that. They don't allow you to set boundaries. They refuse to go along with your plans or allow you to influence them. They want to call the shots. They make unwelcome, supposedly neutral observations. You need to buy some new shoes. You need to get your hair done. And again, that's unwelcome advice or observations, which always puts everyone in a lesser diminished position. They feign or exaggerate concern. It'll be fake worry or fake helping you to make you feel small and incapable. And again, it's kind of fake in its concern. Well, I'm concerned about mom because when really it's not a heartfelt concern. It's a part of that narcissistic syndrome. They compare you to others in a very put down way. They hijack your reality. In other words, their reality is the only thing that matters. Your reality doesn't matter at all. Only the ways they see it is what's important. They can be charming. They can practice love bombing. And then when they want something or need something, they get all lovey-dovey. They act very charming and very cooperative, only to have that be reversed after they get what they want. They can even be frightening at times because they can have mood swings in which you can't control those mood swings. They can be very angry or irritable. They try to keep the parents in a psychological cage. And that psychological cage, they want to be a very strong box that they want to keep their parent in. They don't want their parent to think outside that box. They are shameless. Even though shame is a big part of their personality disorder, they don't experience shame and they don't talk about shame. That's a very unconscious part of their process. And they don't feel guilty. They don't feel guilty. If they haven't done something they said they would do, they don't care. They want to control others' minds and emotions. And then they practice reverse intergenerational intimidation. Many times I've talked about in other videos, and I've got about 150 out there if you want to take a look at them. I'll talk about intergenerational intimidation, and that's often parents doing that to children. Well, when children are narcissists, then it's a reverse. The child will do the intergenerational intimidation, and it will go upward rather than down to a older generation, and they will try to intimidate. Now, what about the parents? A parent or parents of a child who are narcissists often are empaths. Many times they are very empathic or very sensitive or very caring, often over-caring. They can be intuitive and possess high emotional intelligence. They experience their emotions with very high intensity, overcoming rational thought. So again, we won't be very rational with the child. We'll just get very emotional with the child, which puts the child in charge rather than us in charge. We need to focus on thinking and rational rather than our emotional experience. They can sense and are very attuned to the emotions of others. This is the parents. They often can be good listeners and can sacrifice their attention for very long periods of time. And often these parents have a very strong craving to connect with their child emotionally, which is often stronger than reason or common sense. I want to connect with my child. If I can just connect with them, then they would see what they're doing or see how they're treating me. And oftentimes we want them to change, and we'll spend a long time trying to get them to change. Often those parents are influenced more easily by others. They may have their buttons pushed more easily. Parents can get fatigued or emotionally drained more often than others because of the narcissistic child. It's very draining when you have to deal with someone like that day after day after day. They often desire more structure in their lives, but the child wants chaos and very little structure. Or they want structure their way, and they will create chaos until they can get it. So, how do we heal and how do we break free? Learn about enmeshment and becoming more emotionally autonomous. Learn to self-differentiate and become a true, authentic self. Second of all, begin to break out of the psychological cage by getting help from a narcissistic family expert or a self-expert, and read J.H. Simon's book, Killing the Narcissist. Thirdly, work on your love starvation or addiction to your child. Many times we have become enmeshed or addicted to the child, and it becomes our whole world. It's the cocaine or alcohol that we use. Our child is always something we're always worrying about, thinking about, coming home to, stressing over, and it takes up our whole lives. And they take up our whole lives. Heal and resolve your shame. Resolve your fears. Resolve your guilt. And when I say that, is deal with the fear, shame, and guilt, and the fear of abandonment that you've learned long time ago, and resolve that. That will help you strengthen your sense of self in dealing with a narcissistic child. Deal with your family of origin issues growing up, because probably they are playing into the adult-child narcissist and the parent dynamic. Remember, when a child becomes an adult, they no longer need a parent. You have now become their brother or sister in society, and they are equal adults to you. Your child no longer needs a parent, but life, the universe, or God becomes their parent, or society. That's who their parent is now, not you. Of course, we may continue to love our children and offer support in many different kinds of ways, but it's not owed to them. They're adults now. It should only be given freely, intentionally given, not guilt-driven or obtained through manipulation, through bullying. Cease the overfunctioning and enabling with the narcissistic child. Watch my recent video, Letting Everyone Around You Grow Up, because that's what we want to do with the adult narcissistic child. We want to get out of the way so they can grow up and face reality and face life. Stop focusing on the child. Focus on you and your wellness, your stability, your boundaries, your self-care, and your authentic voice and authentic self. If in the case they are physically abusive or damage property in your house, then let the legal consequences be theirs to face. Narcissists will somewhat control their behavior when negative consequences hurt them or come their way. Narcissists are controlled by consequences, not by reason and come on, let's do that. They need to have those consequences so that they can control or change their behavior. You may want to have a partial no contact or a full no contact with the child, or at least have limited exposure to the child until you heal and until you get well. If they're living with you, you may want to offer for them to go to a shelter or go to the Salvation Army, especially if they refuse to work. Or you may want them to go live with a friend or go live with family. Let them experience life without you as the enabler and you as the one who they're controlling. If they live with you and you're not ready to kick them out of the nest so they can fly, choose your battles and stick to them. In other words, these are the 5 things they need to do to live here. And we'll take number 1 and we're going to fight about number 1. That's the most important battle we're going to have. Engage or relate adult children who are narcissists in public places where they may be less verbally abusive or where they would feel more hesitant to act out. Because again, if there's an audience, they may tend to control their behavior. They want to look charming or look positive or make you look bad so they look really good. Then do that in a public way. If we're going to go meet together, let's go meet together in a restaurant. Because hopefully that's less likely that they would be abusive or controlling as much. Now, these are some of the suggestions. There are many more, but I hope this video has been an introduction for those parents who have children who are narcissists. And I hope that you will contact me if you'd like to work with me as a self-expert. I want you to go to my website, www.jerrywiserelationshipsystems.com. Join my Facebook page. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. And I want to thank you very much for listening today, and have a great day. Anna Hampton on her blog states, "I don't trust words. I even question actions, but I never doubt patterns." It is so easy to become an expert on narcissism. There's a lot of information out there. A lot of people put a lot of time into learning about a narcissist. Again, that's not a bad thing to do. However, it is so easy to stay unaware of ourselves and our patterns of interactions with the narcissist. And I think this is the way out. This is the way to find ourselves. One client said to me, "I can tell exactly what my narcissistic mother is going to do, but I have no idea what I should do. I don't know me." We blame the narcissist for the hurt, our low self-esteem, meanness, their lack of empathy. We can fear and anticipate the narcissist's reactions, actions, words, and behavior. Again, we are the expert on the narcissist, but we're not the expert on ourselves. And that's what I try to help those who come, who are adult children of narcissists, who have narcissistic tendencies who have tendencies towards narcissistic relationships. One way out of this dilemma is to focus on the patterns that include us. Not just the cause, but how we are a participant in those patterns. Many of us have learned a lot about how the narcissist functions. We've missed the important information of how we respond, react, how our anxiety works, and what is our pattern behavior. And what I think is really important is how that anxiety works in a relationship with a narcissist. Let me give you an example. I think you just, a narcissist says to a wife or a girlfriend, "Hey, I think you're just stupid and wrong. I don't know why you're this way. It drives me crazy. I'm even embarrassed to go out with friends because of you." You then have your reactions, hooking into your low self-esteem, hooking into your shame, hooking into guilt and negative feelings about yourself or worthlessness. And then he decides, hey, that I did do that. I'm going to tell her I love her, and I'm going to buy her some flowers. Words, I love you. He buys you flowers. Actions. And remember what Anna talked about? I don't trust words. I even am uncertain and don't even trust fully actions, but patterns I don't doubt. His pattern is he ridicules you and puts you down. Later he says, I love you, and buys you flowers. He feels entitled to be mean to you because he always knows he can stabilize you and the relationship through love bombing and or gifts. But it is fake attention. And again, how capable a narcissist's ability is to love is minimal to none, to have true and healthy love. He learns he can fix things after bad behavior. It gives him more latitude to not respect you or put you down in the relationship in the future, because he knows he has that option, and that's the pattern he can use. Our pattern in that scenario is I accept the I love you. Number one, I feel hurt and absorb all of his craziness, his words, his criticism, his distorted image of me, and we absorb that. That's one of the first part of our pattern in this. And then when he turns around and goes, I love you, and then we accept the I love you, we're thrilled because he really cares, and then you even give him more credit because he went out of his way and bought you flowers. So he must really, really care for him to do that, because he doesn't normally do that. But in this case, he did. If he can get us back into the same pattern and back into our same lanes. Your anxiety and pain have gone down because the conflict is resolved for the moment. Because now he said, I love you. Now he gave me flowers. And he is nicer at this point. And you're very happy because you feel you're being loved by someone. He meets your unlovability needs. And by the way, these are issues that we have to work on our side of the pattern, because that gets us connected to this dysfunctional pattern with the narcissist. You have accepted his fix for his bad behavior, and emotionally we absorb it. So we're doing all of this absorbing, which is our pattern. His is to get his way, to control, to demean, to be non-empathetic. Another term for these patterns is the unspoken contracts. And it describes the pattern of interacting, or unspoken contracts. What is your unspoken contract with your narcissist? How have you both colluded without saying it that this is how we're going to act together? You come and be my supply. I then use you for shame shedding. You are upset and have high anxiety because I, as the narcissist, unconsciously know you cannot manage your anxiety or your sense of self, that I can now play good cop and I can persuade you to become less anxious and promise you the fantasy that I love you and that you can be loved and that I care about you. It actually meets our fantasy needs rather than reality needs. And then we respond with feeling better. When actually he has no guilt, nor does he really care about your feelings, I now can continue to use this process to manipulate you. Most times that is unconscious. There are times, if they're sociopathic or if they are really broken, they will do it consciously. And then the game begins again. don't look at the words or actions, but pattern of the words, patterns of the actions, and patterns of your internal feelings. That's what we want to focus on. And that, I think, helps more people recover from their narcissistic relationships. And here's a very key phrase: patterns speak louder than words or actions. Again, there's the feeling acting pattern. He feels a shame trigger. Maybe he got shamed or ridiculed at work. He comes home, he shames you. You feel your past hurts and present pain and trigger feelings of unlovability, unacceptability. And mapping out these patterns can help us to intervene and to change the patterns. For example, let's just put a pin in one part of that process. And we can put that pin in the point at which I feel relief when he says I love you and when he gives me flowers. And when the point when my anxiety goes down, let's put a pin right there and say, is there anything I can do about that point of the interaction? Many times people come to me and they will say, how can I get him to stop? And it's like, well, you're not even talking about the pattern. You're talking about changing him. Let's talk about how you can change you and then see what he does from there. And so we feel relief or anxiety goes down when he gives us, I love you, gives us flowers. I choose to become, let's say, unfazed by the gifts or the words. I'm not angry, I'm just neutral, and I'm not celebratory. I work on loving me. He says, I love you. I do not buy that. I then choose to love me. And he gives me flowers as his I'm sorry, which he does not mean and does not mean for the long run. I then work on accepting me. I work on validating myself, not the distorted view that he has of me as a narcissist. I don't go with this distorted view. And I know it's a distorted view because he's a narcissist. That's a given. So I don't buy into that. So instead of being oh so happy and oh so relieved, I want to work on being more neutral about that. And that communicates something about this pattern and can begin to subtly change the dynamic. If his anger, judgments of you, and blaming and of you is all distorted, and they are all just these mental traps, then why is his I love you and here's some flowers not distorted also and are mental traps as well? They are either way. One's nicer, one's not so nice, but we don't buy into the niceness. And we want to work on not absorbing the negative. So I can choose to become unfazed by the gifts and the words. I don't have to be rejecting. I don't have to be mean. I can be neutral. In the very beginning, let's put a pin in the beginning of that pattern between he and you. In the beginning, I fall for his criticism and truth. I fall for his reality and the way he truly feels about me. But I can work on, no, that's not really true about me. That is Coca-Cola talk, which if you listen to other videos of mine, and I hope you will, and listen to the playlists about self-differentiation and also about adult children of narcissism, that's not the truth about me. He has a distorted view. He is projecting his shame onto me. And instead of listening to his diatribe about how bad I am,
And I can make an excuse to take my exit, that I need to leave. I can choose also not to absorb it or internalize it. This is a true goal for it is to be, because the true goal is for it to be internalized in me. I can even practice, I could even write down in the beginning when the narcissist was saying, I think you're stupid and wrong and act like a child. You can even write those things down and practice not absorbing them. Put it down on paper and read it out loud and practice not taking it in. We can even do those kinds of exercises to help us become stronger. I can choose not to internalize that. I can choose not to absorb it. I'm not sure you can choose to make him not do it. And that's what many people come to me and say, how can you help me make him stop? Well, I mean, I don't know. How do I help the ocean not to hit the shore and the sand? I don't know how to do that. But I can help you with where you're standing on the shore so you don't get wet. I accept that he is not normal with a problem. He is abnormal with a problem, not normal with a problem. He's abnormal with a problem. And so his view of me and reality is distorted and gets weaponized in a relationship. And we don't want to act like he thinks I am. Don't act like he thinks you are. And so I don't want to act that way. I don't even want to take it in emotionally. I can hear something and I can learn to hear something without it piercing here. And that's the practice of self-differentiation. A simple example in another family has to do with a client that I had, but we'll call him Eric. Eric comes back to me after visiting his parents' home for a meal. He's upset and says, they treat me like I've never left home. They treat me like I'm still a child. And I hate that. And I ask Eric, do you act like a child when you're there? Eric says, yes, that's what I hate most about going home. And going home to my parents and how they caused me to act. I said, maybe we can change how you act like a child when you are there. Let's start with you. You are an expert on how your parents behave, because you could probably recount to me everything that they shared with you. The painful parts, the parent-child relationship parts, all the ways in which they want you to be a child. But let's start with you. Let's become more of an expert on what you do when you go, not what they do. I want to say, if you're in a relationship with a toxic or malignant narcissist, actually any narcissist, I would recommend you get some help from a therapist or a coach. You can contact us at the website. And I hope you'll read a couple of books which might be of help to you. Marjalis Fjellstad, that'll be down in the description. Stop Caretaking the Borderliner Narcissist. And the second book of hers is Healing from a Narcissistic Relationship. She's a marriage and family therapist, has personal experience of narcissism, and really has written some good couple of books. I would recommend those. I want to thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day, and be wise.
Hi everyone, my name is Jerry Wise, and for over 45 years I've been helping people who grew up in narcissistic, toxic, and dysfunctional families. And I have worked with them to get their family dysfunction out of them and become their true selves they were never allowed to be. Today, I want to talk about 9 things I wish I knew 60 years ago about healing from family dysfunction. And I want to share these with you. The number one thing that has probably done the most to change my life, change my thinking, change my emotional life, help me to survive very difficult times, and also heal from trauma. And that is self-differentiation. So number one, learning that self-differentiation was the key. And you may think, well, I don't really know what that is, or that's fine. If you don't know what it is, I have plenty of videos where I begin to talk about that. And I'll even talk about what self-differentiation is now and how it's missing from most of the advice out there. Because I knew that my self-esteem was bad. I did kind of know that. And I did feel bad about myself, good codependent, religiously addicted, messed up in many ways, mentally and emotionally. And I did not know how my self-esteem should go up. How do you make it go up? What do you do to make it go up? And of course, I went on a quest to try to figure that out. Going to school for pre-law, music, and then into psychology, pastoral counseling, marriage and family therapy, and on from there to learn how to heal myself is really what I was doing. I knew things weren't great in my family growing up. I wanted to be not my family. But how do I become not my family? Because that's all I knew. That's all the programming and experience that I had had. I had not grown up in anybody else's family. I'd only grown up in my family. There was a lot of simplified, superficial advice out there that was good. I would even say was good advice. But it didn't get to the core, I felt, and that underlying broken paradigm, it just didn't go deep enough. Again, the advice may not have been bad advice, but it didn't go to the heart of things. And it tended more for me to be more superficial. No one was talking about how relationships work, how relationships are systems with pushes and pulls, and also how my dysfunction was caught up in all of that and in all the relationships in my life. In beginning to discover that, I felt a greater empowerment when I began to learn about self-differentiation. Simply put, self-differentiation is being yourself, being your true self, while not taking on the toxicity or expectations of others and just being you. And I didn't mean in a mean way, in an arrogant way, but learning to be you as a solid self, and you're not guided by other people's expectations, other people's approval, likes of you, dislikes of you, even their toxicity or anger or frustration. That's not guiding your inner core. Second of all, don't change others. Focus on changing your emotional location, which basically means change you, not them. I think I try to explain to people, and I talk more about it in other works that I have and workshops and programs that I've created for those who follow me, that when you become more emotionally detached, that's a change of your emotional location. If you have a puzzle and all of the family is in this puzzle and all the pieces fit together, if one person in the puzzle becomes more detached and more a real self, that changes their location in the puzzle. And then others in the puzzle have to shift and change around to either force you or want you to come back, reject you so there's just a hole missing, or they come to adapt to the new you. But anytime you make that mental and emotional change, a paradigm change, then You're changing emotional location. And that's very critical for how you experience the world. If I give up feelings of guilt and shame and shift my emotional location in the family, then what happens is when I give up that guilt and shame, it shifts that location in the family. I'm not in the family in the same way. If I waved a magic wand and said, you're going to go to your family dinner, gathering, whatever, and you cannot feel guilt or shame, do you think that would change something? It would certainly change something for you. My hunch is it would change something for them, or at least they would be alerted that something is different here. Because often we will act and react out of our guilt and shame, which is so commonly programmed into us in dysfunctional families. And so we then shift our place in that emotional location. Another way to think about it is you have a mobile, and a mobile is all those pieces. You remember you may have built some of those when you were in junior high or whatever in art class, and you have all these pieces on there, and if you move one piece, it shifts all the others. Family operates the same way. You change one piece, all the other pieces must adjust to that somehow. And so we want to learn to change our emotional location, which is shifting your position in the mobile for you to become healthier and more self-differentiated. And I learned that that was very important. Number 3, healing takes time, and that it's not good to run after quick fixes. In other words, I have to work to learn about how I work in my family, how I work in the emotional process of my family, how they work in me, how I work in them, how they react to me, how I react to them. I must learn some of these very important dynamics. They are often simple dynamics because it's not complicated. You already know this information. You just haven't been alerted to it or known how to use it effectively to grow, to be yourself. Because if I know how things operate between the two of us, whether you do or not, I still have an advantage or a leverage at that point. And I can begin to be myself more in this dance that we do. Whether you know how you operate in the system or not, I can still change me in the dance and learn new steps. So, what is a quick fix? I think, simply put, a quick fix does not take in systems dynamics or systems perspective. For example, a quick fix might be somebody telling you, oh, just go to them and talk it out. Go to your narcissistic father and just talk that out. I mean, don't we have a society where you need to talk about things? It's good to get things out in the open. It's good to clear the air. It's good. Well, yes, that's a good way of thinking and doing. However, if we know more about how narcissism works in relationships, if we know more about how your family operates, then we probably wouldn't want to take that advice in that simple, quick fix way. It probably will be a disaster. And that's why I hesitate in giving people different types of advice, because they many times tell me, well, just tell me what to do. Well, it's not just about telling you what to do, because you could go do it, but you're going to go fly a 747 and you haven't even learned how to fly a Cessna yet. And so learning systems thinking, learning how you operate in the system, which you can learn because you have all the information, you're just not used to looking at it. And once you look at it, you'll go, oh, that's simpler than I thought. And the whole world begins to open up in a different way. And so that's an example of a quick fix. Now, with regard to quick fixes, maybe going and talking it out is just fine if you don't have a highly charged emotional relationship, like, say, a narcissistic relationship or dysfunctional one. If you have a very close friend who loves you dearly and you both get along really well, you both respect each other, well, then go talk it out.
You don't have to go any deeper than that. But if it's a much more highly charged situation, you've got to know more to be able to fly that 747 and not just the Cessna if you're just going to run into it and try to do it. And I think that we don't want to go and just confront situations we don't like. Why is that? Am I telling people not to be assertive? Not to express their feelings? Not to express their beliefs? Yeah, exactly. That is what I'm saying. Don't do that. Why am I telling you not to do that in highly charged situations? Because if you understand systems, the more the relationship is charged with anxiety, the less butting of heads you should be doing. We have to wait until that anxiety goes down before we can have that kind of discussion, or it won't go well. And in fact, what we would want to learn about before we went and did all this confrontation is understand the decades of family of origin programming that we've had, understand our level of self-esteem and self-confidence, our understanding our anxious, dysregulated emotional process. When are we going to get reactive? And do you know when you're going to get reactive? Do you know how to not get reactive? And when we understand that the deep need for their acceptance and approval is still present, I still need their acceptance and approval, then don't go confront a narcissist, because you're going to get neither. It's going to become real bad. When we have this continued deep need for them to change, and we'd like to change them, we have difficulty thinking clearly when emotionality runs high within us. And if we easily feel shamed and guilt, which are what I call systems feelings, when we feel those feelings, and if we are easily have access to those, unfortunately, or they occur quite readily, then it's not good to just take quick fixes, go and challenge someone, just go talk it out. Here, just go tell them the Bible verse they need to know so they know they're wrong and you're right. Don't challenge them because they made fun of your career or your... We have to be wiser than that. And one of the things, since I come from a religious background, be as wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. And self-differentiation is the way to become wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. It really did blend into what I believed about what I wanted to become. Number 4. Your feelings are not always valid. I always learn so many times from so many books. All your feelings are valid. They're all equal. They're all equally important. If you believe that, you are going to make lots of mistakes. And follow your heart and follow your feelings. Do you know how often your feelings mislead you? You think you grew up in a dysfunctional family and all of your feelings are valid, appropriate, real, and true? No. Your feelings are not, many of them are not. And in fact, I had to come to learn to understand the difference between systems feelings and my real feelings. I didn't know that all feelings shouldn't be honored. All are valid, but not because they are true. In other words, if you have systems guilt and feel guilt, and that's feeling guilt over nothing, you haven't done anything wrong, there's no reason for the guilt, but you feel guilty because they want you to feel guilty. It's still a valid feeling, but it's not a true feeling. You don't have true guilt. In other words, you haven't done anything wrong. It's there to control your behavior, your thinking, your feeling, your actions. It's there to control all those things. And that's how partly the family system programs us. So learning the difference that not all feelings are valid and true. I didn't know that. I just thought they all were. So every feeling, no matter how systems oriented it was versus my true feelings, I just took it all as it's all valid and it's all good. You know, if I'm feeling shame, then I'm feeling shame. No, you are feeling shame. I mean, I'm not denying that, But what is the source of the shame? Is it because you feel shame, or is it because you're supposed to feel shame? And one is an individual model, one is a systems model. And I'll talk more about that in other videos. Number 5, your boundaries are only as good as your inner boundaries. So external or physical boundaries, whatever kind of limitations you have with other people in your life, are only as good as your inner boundaries. And I remember reading a study, it talked about assertiveness training. And I remember back 300 years ago when we were all talking about assertiveness training, and that was the big thing. Assertiveness training is great. There's nothing wrong with assertiveness training. The problem is, what they found in the research is, someone will take assertiveness training, do very well, and then it will just trail off. And why does it do that? Because the inner self-esteem, the inner boundaries or detachment was not present. And so you can learn to do certain things, but it's going to be hard to maintain it if you don't work with what's going on in here first. And so, again, I attempted many times to set boundaries, but I was so filled with low self-worth, need for acceptance, intense guilt, anxious reactivity, and all those things have to do with inner boundaries. And if I have all those things going on, my boundaries are probably not going to go very well. I'm going to have a hard time thinking them up. I'm going to have a hard time sharing them. And I'm going to have a hard time insisting on those boundaries. Number 6, become okay with disappointing others. That's one of the things I wish I'd have known 60 years ago, that it's okay to disappoint others. That's called life. Have you, and as a good codependent, as I was, that, you're not supposed to disappoint other people. And it was too painful for me to disappoint someone else because it caused me too much upsetness. So then I would keep being the doormat or the overfunctioner. And again, the difficulty was, it was so important for me to learn to disappoint. And really, to not disappoint others is to rescue them from their feelings. And so I needed to learn not to rescue other people from their feelings or their experience. And I remember going through chaplaincy training. That was very, very tough training. It was very significant and a grind to go through. And the supervisor I had he was actually phenomenal, but he actually drove us absolutely nuts because we were just so novice at what we were doing, and he was quite experienced. And he would use that to help us learn and grow very quickly, but it was painful. And learning not to rescue the people that we were working with, patients who were dying, family members who are experiencing deep grief. It's not helpful to rescue. It's helpful to be alongside and be a support. But boy, that's tough to learn that when someone's really having a hard time. Or, as I've had for clients for 45 years, a client says, well, how do I do that, Jerry? I don't know how to do that. I'm just lost. Do I rush in and rescue and fix? No. I go, well, where did you learn that you don't know what to do? And where did you learn that you were lost? Let's go back there. Rather than me going, well, let me tell you exactly what you should do and do this and do this and do that. Let me rescue you. And then, of course, if it doesn't work, they're going to blame me. And that's just not a good dynamic between the coach or therapist and the client. It's not a good dynamic to have that. It doesn't mean I don't care. I know how it can feel to feel lost. I get that. But lost doesn't mean you cannot find yourself, if I can say it that way. You can be lost. You also can find yourself because you are with yourself. You are yourself. But more on that later. Number 7, don't use normal rules for abnormal relationships. That was something I began to learn over these many years and how important that is. But that's also looking at it in the sense of more of a systems way of looking at it. And what I mean by that is, if you believe, love your neighbor, okay, I think it's a wonderful thing. It's fabulous. It's a good injunction. It's a good law. It's a good, that's fine. However, how do you live that out with a malignant narcissist? How do you live it out? That can become really tricky. And if you use the standard rules or normal rules for families, for relationships, even the Bible in its normal use, you can become pretty abused and not for a good purpose. And so what we have to recognize is that, wait a minute, this is an abnormal relationship, and they may be abnormal or unwell or narcissistic or sociopathic or whatever. And I need to be careful about the rules I use and how I operate with them. If you had a good friend of yours who came up and said, hey, could you loan me $200? I just had a car problem and had to pay that, and I just need some gas money for a week or two. Could you help me with that? Well, you might be willing to go, well, sure, let me see if I can help you with that. Now, that's kind of what normal people do, right? In a normal relationship. But in an abnormal relationship, someone may want to take advantage of you and may be looking to abuse you in some way. So in those situations, I may not loan the $200 or give them the $200 for their cash. So I'm using abnormal rules. I'm not going to help you because of the toxicity that's there versus, oh, of course I'll help you because we have a normal kind of relationship that's more mutual. So I learned that I have to watch how I apply all of these rules and social norms that I've believed all my life and how they apply. And we have to be very careful about that. Yeah, in terms of normal rules, I always felt I had to accept and play by the rules others set. You set them, and then I need to play by them. However, they would act abnormally and in a toxic or abusive way and expect me to use conventional, healthy, and caring rules towards them. That's very unwise. It is very unwise to do that. And in fact, you will be enabling the toxicity. In other words, having a dynamic where they express, I won't respect you, but you should always respect me. I feel no empathy to help you, but you must always be kind and generous to me. That's kind of the using normal rules for abnormal relationships. Number 8, you are not responsible for others, even if they say you are. I always felt over-responsible for everyone. I just had a big, over-caring heart, I thought. But my caring at its core was not actually about them. It was actually about me, my guilt, my anxiety, my fears, my need for approval, my low self-esteem, because then I could use me caring for them to lift my self-esteem. And I'm not saying helping others doesn't improve depression and can help with self-esteem, but that's not the dynamic I'm talking about right now. It's that I would use that in a way that I felt over-responsible for others. Their feelings, however they felt, whatever they thought, it must be my responsibility. And came to learn that it really isn't. I have enough to deal with my own feelings, thoughts, beliefs, wishes, wants, preferences. I've got enough to deal with that without managing yours. And I would manage others all the time, and it just became overwhelming. Number 9, if you don't self-differentiate from your family,
you are likely to remain stuck or in problematic systems or relationships. My stuckness for years was about not focusing more on me and about not going deep enough to address underlying relationship dynamics, meaning self-differentiation. I needed to go deeper to understand what was working rather than just a superficial understanding of what was going on. If you resonated with this video, I highly recommend joining my free training, Build the Real Self You Were Never Allowed to Have. See the link below, where I give you practical advice and tools to apply all of this to your own life and unique situation. Learning about and doing the work of self-differentiation will unlock many of your recovery efforts. Self-differentiation is the most effective way to become your true self, your strong self. Self-differentiation from your family of origin is the most powerful way to mature and heal, grow, and recover, because you can apply this way of thinking and feeling to all areas of your life. I hope that you will subscribe, like, comment. I want to thank you for joining me today. Have a great day and be wise. Hello, my name is Jerry Wise, and I'm a relationship expert, and I've been a relationship expert for probably 35 plus years now. I coach individual couples and families in the healing and recovery process of self-differentiation. I'm the director of the Center for Self-Differentiation. I have clients all the way from Moscow to Israel to France to California, Texas, anywhere in the English-speaking world. So I just wanted to say, if you are interested, you certainly can get a hold of me and get some professional and expert help with some of the problems that you have. Because I do offer professional services online, Skype, FaceTime, phone, or I do have people come to my office who are in the area of the Midwest. This video is entitled, Surviving Your Family's Emotional Cancer, Enmeshment. I have a lot of people who contact me and want me to help them with their process of self-differentiation and growing up within their family of origin. They feel stuck. They don't feel like anything is moving with their family. They feel very frustrated, very angry. They will even say, hey, other areas of my life are going really well, but when it comes to my family of origin or my parents or siblings, it's just horrible. And I feel horrible and I get triggered and I'm reactive. But yet I can be the vice president of a company or a program manager for a very large, multi-million-dollar project. But yet when it comes to my family of origin, I seem like I'm still a kid. And it's so miserable and it's so frustrating. It affects my marriage. It affects all kinds of things. And they will contact me and say, Jerry, can you give me some help? So the cancer, the emotional cancer of family of origin, is what I call enmeshment. Now, why do I use that harsh term of cancer? Why would I use such a deadly or harsh disease to kind of... Well, because there are some similarities in that cancer is an overabundance of something that we don't need. Cancer cells are replicating and dividing way too much for the healthy body, and if too much of that is occurring, it becomes toxic and deadly. And I hear these kinds of things from folks and comments, and emails and letters and phone calls. My family is so dysfunctional. My family is so toxic, and so toxic to me, even toxic to other people. My family drives me nuts. My family is so hurtful. It's so shaming. It's so guilt-centered. And I just can't stand it. Why can't I stand it? What is wrong with me, Jerry? I can't talk to my dad, and my mother is so critical, or she never listens, or dad is so mean, and mom is so mousy and passive, and it just drives me nuts, and I can't deal with it. I couldn't deal with it as a kid, and I can't deal with it now as an adult. So oftentimes they will say, so Jerry, do you suggest I just cut off from them and never talk to them again? Well, I mean, that's always the client's privilege and right. I don't tell someone what they have to do and not to do. I'm not their parent. I'm not their priest. What I tell them is, if you want a healthy way out, again, don't get out of your family, get your family out of you. That's what's so important. Families can have where two siblings never talk to the family. There might be 5 siblings and 2 of them are all cut off and they don't talk. Or one sibling is on drugs and lives with mom and dad, which creates problems for the whole family. And so our holidays are always a downer because our family does not get along very well, cannot talk. We're overreactive. There are subjects we can't talk about. There are taboo subjects, and on and on and on. Fear I'm going to hurt my mother. Fear I'm going to hurt my father. Fear if I do this, I'll have a heart attack. Or fear if I do this, they won't love me anymore. And so I can't have any kind of normal, healthy conversation with my parents. With my parents, some say, unless there's a crisis or we're talking about somebody else. All of these are symptoms and traits of that family of origin emotional cancer called enmeshment. My mother comments on everything I do and has opinions about everything as well. And has opinions about everything I do, everything I think, everything I feel, everything I wear, or everything I might do, or might think, or might wear, or might choose, or might buy, or lots of triangles in the family because of the enmeshment. The mother tells one sister, now tell your sister she needs to be there. Tell your brother he needs to do this. And then we have a lot of indirect communication going on, and that's because of enmeshment. Dad says, well, just do it. It'll make your mother or your father happy. Just do it. Don't challenge it. Just do it. What's so hard about just doing it? Our family of origin members do not see the enmeshment. Don't assume they know what's happening. They don't. In fact, for a long time, you may not have either if you've come to more insight about your family of origin. And don't assume bringing it up, challenging them with it, will enlighten them. Well, if I just tell them we're all enmeshed, then they'll all just wake up in the morning and go, oh, well, we won't be enmeshed anymore because Sally told us that we were enmeshed, so we'll stop that. No, that's not going to happen. And it probably will cause more of a problem. Once you stop being authentic and start being diagnostic or psychological or interpretive in some way, that's probably not going to go well in your family of origin. Once you start into the diagnostic mode or the therapizing mode, well, let me just tell my family what they're doing wrong and then we can get this fixed. The main point is to change you, not them. Responses are guided by feelings, and thoughts are guided by feelings when we have this emotional cancer. Feelings drive our thoughts, and feeling drives our behaviors. It's not the thought process or being deliberative or objective. It's a very subjective process, and often a process we don't see because it's so subjective. It's underneath the radar or unconscious. People use different words for that. This over-closeness leads us to a place of mutual rejection. We're so closely tight and tied that we end up rejecting each other, and that's often what enmeshment does, and that's often the end result. It ends up in fights, arguments, slammed doors, phone hang-ups, silence. All those are traits of enmeshment. People say, well, I was just angry. Yeah, but your anger had a root source, and that was your enmeshment with them. We still have an emotional umbilical cord attached to our parents or to our family of origin, and that's that emotional cancer I'm talking about. The without you, I'm not okay feeling of enmeshment, or without you being who I need you to be or want you to be, then I'm not okay feeling. That's enmeshment. There's a low tolerance for differences or differentiation. In other words, we can't handle that you might disagree with how we feel about things, or where we think things should go, or how you should parent, or whether you should buy that house or not, or it really should run through us because we need to be very much alike. That's that pull of enmeshment. We must think and feel alike. We must be as one. Now, what's interesting is that there was a time when that was essential. But that was many, many years ago when we were infants or dependent in a very natural way in our development. The thing is, families grow up, but they keep the infantile or they keep the emotional dependence going. And sometimes they even keep the physical dependence going. We'll pay your bills. We'll take care of you. We'll support you. So you don't have to have a job. I mean, parents will even go that far. When we have this enmeshment, we must give up self to be in the relationship. And we've always given up self to be in the relationship. Then we always give up self to be in a relationship with adult partners or spouses. And we don't find self to be in the relationship. Because if you find self, that's going to challenge the relationship. And as I've said, every human being begins and enters the world totally dependent on others. Totally natural and appropriate. But where have we grown from there? And many times we've kept the emotional dependence going. And many families want that to go on. Many families believe this should remain, and it is the norm, even though there's an aging process and a maturity process that wars against it. Because as we get older, we want to find a job, we want to establish our own family, we want to establish our own beliefs, our own family rules, etc. So maturation, growing up, wars against that enmeshment, but families fight against that very strongly. Even kids can fight against it as well. Dysfunctional families want it both ways and learn the messages. For example, grow up, but don't leave home, or don't leave me, or don't leave us. But grow up, be yourself, but let the family guide you and don't get too far away from who the family is. Be yourself, but not different from us or me. I call this, in a family of origin setting, parentism, which is, well, I'm your parents, so I have a right to ... Even when the child is 55 years old, 60 years old, 40 years old, 35 years old. I'm your parent, so I have a right to, and then you can fill in the blank. That's parentism, is what that is. And that's a continued enmeshment. No, you really don't have a right. I mean, you have a right to have your own opinion. I mean, it's a free country. You can have your own opinion. But that doesn't mean you have a right to violate boundaries, to not respect me as an individual or as an adult. No, that's not okay, even if you're a blood parent. So how is this a cancer? Because like many cancers, it's the toxic effect of too much of a good thing. Would you agree we all need water? Every human being needs water. We're what, 98% water? And yes, we do need water. What would, though, drinking 20 gallons of water do to you? Probably kill you and kill a normal human being. But then the family would argue, but all human beings need water. Yeah, but I'm getting 20 gallons of it, Mom or Dad. I'm getting 20 gallons and I'm dying in the process. Well, I just don't think you have that right. We all need water, and water's important. So again, we kind of fog the issue, or we kind of detract from the issue, because you can't argue that water is bad for us. Water is very good for us. So you can't argue it's bad. Well, but 20 gallons is not good. And in fact, as I'm going to talk about in a minute, closeness or togetherness is a healthy thing. Over closeness, too much togetherness, is what's toxic and cancerous for us emotionally. I believe this is why making the case and arguing with parents and family members does not do much good. It appears to them you're arguing water is not good for people. And that's how they hear it. Why would they be arguing that water is not good for people? But of course, that's not your complaint or your concern. You're saying 20 gallons of water at one sitting is not good for people. And our relationship is like having 20 gallons. Enmeshment is abnormal, as I just mentioned. Connectedness process is, enmeshment is an abnormal connectedness process. We do need connectedness, but the abnormalness of it is what enmeshment is. Just as cancer is an abnormal cell growth. They grow too fast, they split too fast, they take over other cells. So it's not that cells are bad, but a sick or toxic process, disease process, is bad. Cancer is too much cell growth. And again, for all my physician clients out there, and I realize I'm oversimplifying cancer, and so don't criticize me too much for my analogy. Enmeshment is too much connectedness, too much of the togetherness force. There are two healthy forces in emotional relationships from birth to death. One is togetherness, one is separateness. We need both. We need both. We need a balance of both. Too much of either process produces an emotional tumor that can end up being toxic cancer. And this toxic cancer of overcloseness or enmeshment is often the root cause of abandonment issues, adult relationship failures, reactivity, anxiety and fear, guilt, shame, feelings of low self-esteem, never feeling good enough, depression, suicide, other mental illnesses, caretaking, enabling exhaustion, anger and irritability that gets displaced onto others. Because when we are enmeshed and have an overcloseness to our family of origin, or even to other people, it spills out other places because it's too much of something. And so it has to bleed or push out in other ways. So what do we do about it? We reduce the size of the tumor or the cancer. We work towards less togetherness or less emotional togetherness, less over closeness. Again, the problem is internal, not simply reducing your physical contact with someone. Like, I'll just move to California 3,000 miles away from so-and-so, then I won't be enmeshed. No, you can be enmeshed 2,000 miles away. You can be enmeshed 8,000 miles away. It's the emotional distance we're looking for, not the miles. Work on healing your inner child and his or her fears and neediness. That's where the emotional enmeshment keeps its drive going, because of those fears and neediness. Secondly, learn to behave differently with enmeshed or unhealthy family. Warn them that you're going to be changing, then begin to change in some ways and target ways in which you want to begin to do that. I have a video in which I talked about a family prayer that I was always expected to give at meals and at holidays because I happened to be a pastor at that time, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't, just because that was what I did for a living. That isn't what I wanted to do every time we got together. So I warned everyone that I didn't want to do it, wasn't going to do it. I think it should be shared around. And then when it came to it, I stayed quiet. And so you warn them, and then you proceed further with your actions. I would get a coach or a therapist who understands and uses a Bowen Family Systems approach to help you with self-differentiation. I've found it the most helpful and the most clarifying. Thirdly, don't worry. Perfection is not required. Self-differentiation is a way of life, a journey. It's not just an act. It's not a state where you just, okay, now I'm self-differentiated. It is a process that continues on, and we continue to work on it and get better at it and clearer at it, clearer about ourselves, clearer about relationships. Fourthly, decide what you want, you feel, you believe, you need, and you accept. What do you accept? Not what does my family accept, not what does my father accept and thinks I should accept. What are your beliefs? What are your goals? Where are you trying to go? That's not always easy because many of us have not learned to do that. We just had expectations, and we have to live those expectations. You may need help with this. Again, you can get help to help you with finding out what you feel, you want, you think, you believe, so that you can self-differentiate, be yourself, a true authentic self. Fifthly, remember there will be resistance. The family doesn't want you to change. No matter how much they say they do, they really don't. Because it's like a mobile. Everybody has their place, and there's a place for everyone. And you're supposed to function in that place the way you're supposed to function. You start messing with that position or that place, you're going to cause lots of problems. And so there will be resistance. There are ways, and I have some resources for you if you want to write me an email. I can give you resources to deal with that resistance. Stay with it. Things will change. It will get easier, and you will begin to enjoy fewer symptoms of the family's enmeshment. It really does work. And you will find yourself becoming more calm, more centered, less needy, more relaxed, can think better without just getting overreactive. And, in this video, I know I can't give you all the steps and advice in this short video. And so I can't try. You'd fall asleep or get bored. I don't know. If you want to free yourself from the family enmeshment, over closeness, or that emotional cancer I talk about, contact me. My contact information is on your screen, or it's below in the notes. I hope that you will please join our YouTube channel. Please share this video on your social media. I found a lot of people are helped by our videos. People have been helped by my videos. Even if they don't come and see me, they have said, hey, I've watched some of your videos and I gained more from that than 5 years of therapy. Because the videos are like therapy. I hope that you'll watch many of the other 100 videos I have on YouTube. And I want to thank you today for watching, and have a great day.